Mr. Smith, copy your invoice, your keys. Pleasure doing business with you. Enjoy your weekend. So let's talk about using this knowledge that we have about customer type. Because we've identified quadrant 1 through 4 now, and the trick is to recognize them when they walk through your door. But of course, they don't all come at you one at a time, do they? They'll come in droves someday. What happens if you get a quadrant 1 customer at the counter and a quadrant 3 customer walks through the door and you're by yourself at the counter? How do you handle that? Or what if you have a quadrant 3 at this counter already? And they're leaning on the counter and they're telling stories and you guys are sharing donuts and 2 quadrant 1s walk through the door. How do you handle that? So let's talk about using this information. The first thing you've got to be able to do, and I hope you've been thinking about what quadrant you fit into, what quadrant your spouse or significant other fits into while we've been having this discussion. Because the most important thing is that you recognize that customer. You don't have to get it right 100% of the time, but you've at least got to recognize the significant cues. You see, a 3 and a 1, those are the extremes, aren't they? The fast, efficient transaction, getting in, getting out, don't want a whole lot of information that belongs to the quadrant 1, and the quadrant 3 that's going to hang around for a while. Those are the extremes. 2s and 4s, our industry is kind of built for 2s and 4s, right? We've taught Service Writer for years to be personable, to go over the invoice, as in slow the transaction down or give bullet points, be efficient. 2s and 4s, you've got a lot of latitude. It's almost hard to mess up with a 2 or a 4. But the 1s and the 3s are the really tough ones. And the 1s and the 3s are the customers that are most challenging for you. So what do you do with the 3 at the counter when the 2 come walking through the door that are quadrant 1? You have an advantage with quadrant 3. You have a tool in quadrant 3. You see, you can say to that quadrant 3 customer, I'd love to hear the rest of this story. Can I get these 2 guys in and out of here real quick and then I'll be right back to you? And what did the quadrant 3 just hear you say? They just heard you say that you want to hear the rest of their story and that you'll be right back. So how patient are they going to be? They're going to be pretty patient now, aren't they? They're hanging out. They may not have a whole lot else to do. Or they may say, I'm all set. I'll let you get back to work. We'll see you later. What did the quadrant 1s hear you say? The quadrant 1s saw some exceptional customer service, didn't they? They saw you excuse yourself politely from that quadrant 3 without pushing them away. And they also heard you say, I want to get them in and out of here. What can you do to get quadrant 1s in and out quickly? Especially if you have a waiting room full of people or you got a line forming at your counter. Because those quadrant 1s are the ones that are tough to deal with, aren't they? Especially when you have a line. Use what tools you have available to you. If you have a pre-printed repair order and you know what they're there for, just ask them to sign it and get them going. You can excuse yourself from the person right there at the terminal when you have a moment and say, excuse me for 2 seconds, let me have this gentleman sign this repair order and I'll be right back to you. It sends an important message. Don't do that with a quadrant 1 at your terminal. Get them going and then handle the next quadrant 1. If you've got a night drop envelope at the counter, or you've got a customer problem analysis sheet, we'll talk about that later, at the counter. These tools can be used to gather information from quadrant 1 customers. You know what I say about handling quadrant 1 customers? They're like dealing with 4-year-olds. What do you do with a 4-year-old? Those of you that have kids can probably give me the answer. You give them something to do. Quadrant 1 customers are a lot like handling a 4-year-old. They're antsy, they want to get going, they want to do. Hand them something to do. If you give them something to fill out, here, ma'am, I know you want to get going. If I could just collect some information from you regarding your problem, we'll get you out of here quicker. The thing it does by giving them something to do is you've just put their time back in their hands. When you ask for them to fill out the night drop envelope or the problem analysis sheet, and it's quick, it's easy information, it's not going to take a long time. You've handed them their time. You've basically said to them, you control how long you're going to be here for. So they give you the information, and then they know if I do this quickly and efficiently and I hand it back to the service writer, I'm out of here more quickly. They would much rather do that and have the control than wait in line. while you talk with quadrant 3 or quadrant 2 or quadrant 4 for the next 10, 15 minutes. Okay? So think about what tools you have at your disposal. Remember what these individuals need. Quadrant 3s need the connection. You have the ability to use them. Set them aside for a minute. They'll stick around. To handle quadrant 1s, they need convenience. They're in and out. They want to get going. They need convenience. 2s and 4s, think bullet points. They need more information. Show and tell works really well with those folks. Quadrant 1s, don't try to show and tell. Ask them, but don't try to show and tell with them, because they generally don't want to spend the time. Think about what tools you have to get quadrant 1s moving along. Rental cars, loaner cars, rides, shuttle buses, whatever it may be. They don't want to stick around. Okay? So it's about knowing your options, knowing your alternatives, and knowing what tools you have, along with recognizing the customer types. Every customer type needs a certain thing in that transaction. Don't forget about it, practice it, think about it, and you'll increase your customer satisfaction. More to follow.